Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pope Metallicus, and welcome back to Rock and Roll Religion, where we've got once again one of my favorite band of all time and one of my favorite records of all time. Today we are covering the immortal 1977 album "Sin After Sin" by Judas Priest, their third studio album, and in my top 5 albums from them. So this is going to be a really good one. And here to help me do that, welcome back to the Sentinel. Been a while, buddy. How you doing?
Hell, man. What's up, everyone? It's good to be back.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. I know this
Hi,
was kind of
it's
last
Judas
minute.
Priest.
I was planning on doing a different artist this week, but
I'll always be here for the priest.
of
Don't
course,
matter.
and it's never a bad time to talk about him either, right?
No, it's never a bad time to talk about Judas Priest. Absolutely.
All right,
Good.
and bring up my graphics here. As always, you can find the Sentinel on Twitter at what is it?
The
Sentinel
Sentinel 831.
831.
If it,
Okay.
if it hasn't been like deleted by communist transformers yet,
Well, I
you know
mean that happens.
that happens.
That's what got me
Or
the first one, right?
yeah, yeah. I had a pretty good following on that, but I'm doing pretty good so far, so I'm happy with it.
Awesome.
You can find me at the Sentinel 831 on Twitter, or you can find me at Sentinel 43 on Instagram.
Yeah, or if you really want to be based, you can come hang out with us on Gilded.
That's right.
The link to my Gilded server is in the description of the video. Along with, I do have a Stream Elements link. If you guys do feel like leaving me a tip and thanks and support what I do, I appreciate it. If not, well, enjoy the show anyway because you're getting it for free. But now getting into this album, man, like I said, it's one of my top 5 from them.
hmm
And like even I love their early art covers too.
It's very 70s, I
Yeah,
would say.
it's very different from the Screaming for Vengeance cover or Defenders of the Faith. It's a very different style, but I
That's more of
like
like a
the aesthetic.
minimized style, I would say. This
Yeah,
is
it's much more
definitely
subdued.
more like you would put on your you would put it on your wall to seem, sophisticated.
Yeah, this is more like an oil painting rather than
Yes. Yeah.
a loud heavy metal band banner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, aside from like the skull and then the sin after sin
Yeah, and apparently this is a real building somewhere. I've seen a picture of it.
with the skull too. Cool.
I believe with the skull and everything, not the lights, obviously, but it's based on a real mausoleum somewhere. I forget where.
Oh, and it's got like some Egyptian iconography right under the skull too.
Yep, with the wings of Horus, I think it is.
Yeah.
Might be wrong with that, but I've never been hugely up on Egyptian mythology. I'm more of a Greek and Norse guy, but no, it's a really cool art style, and I like that they have the older emblem still.
hmm
I think the next album, Stained Class, is where they changed that to the '80s font that I use.
I think you're right. Yeah, it was Stained Class that changed the font. Yeah. And
Yeah,
there's not much of a real sonic difference between as far as like speed goes, between Sin After Sin and Stained Class, I would say Stained Class is like a really nice mix of the speed of Sin After Sin and some of the darker songs of Sad Wings of Destiny. But what you
yeah,
get with Sin After Sin is there's 3 songs. I would say Sinner. I would also say, what's the track? It's Let Us Pray. And I would
yeah.
say
Let us pray and call the
Dissonant
priest
and
is
Breathwork.
fucking monstrous.
Yeah, those I would say.
And
It's a cool little rocker, but then for me, you've got like Last Rose of Summer, which is like really I'm not a huge fan of. But some of the others are really the songs are themselves are really good, and I would label it speed metal. It,
oh yeah,
it definitely full on like 70s speed metal. I feel like if you compare this to like a Rainbow album, with like a fast song, like
I've noticed that where this era of Priest, they got a lot more progressive with their musicality.
they got a lot more progressive and they got a lot faster in terms of tempo.
Hmm. And they are not afraid to slow it down. I mean, songs like "Raw Deal" and "Here Come the Tears," I actually really enjoy. Here Come the Tears,
Uh,
especially, it's kind of more of a psychedelic, almost Black Sabbath feel.
really? Oh, okay. Because I happen to disagree. I got like a real sorry, I just got like a real filler vibe from that song.
I mean, I can hear that, but when you kind of sit with it a few times, it's like, okay, I can see the more down paced kind of doomy side of this song a little bit. There's some stuff from early Sabbath that sounds a lot like it.
I'll listen to it to see if I'm hearing what you're hearing.
But Raw Deal, I just like that 70s kind of slick funk vibe it's got going on.
Hmm.
It's
I'm
just
not
a
a fan
really
of that really either. Right. I gotta be honest. I'm somewhat indifferent to Priest after um Victim of Changes because Victim of Changes was so good to me. It's like I want more of this.
well,
And
that's
then they
true. And there's
go,
some other stuff on Sad Wings of Destiny that's absolutely epic, but it was a bit inconsistent as a record.
but the songs on the record for me
I
were
mean,
just like,
individual songs off that record are among their all-time classics and should be played every
oh,
time until
oh,
they.
so for you, like Sad Wings is more like an inconsistent record with great songs, whereas Sin
Yes.
After Sin is more of a consistent record with not as, for, at least for me, not the songs don't stand out the way they stand out.
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
that aside from maybe, like you said, "Let Us Pray," "Call the Priest," or "Dissonant Aggressor," I don't think any of the other individual songs are as highly rated
Hmm.
as Sad Wings, but I think the record has a more coherent sound to it.
Oh, okay. I hear what you're saying, and I do hear that when you compare like the Ripper to Tyrant or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
Although I do enjoy both of those songs, but for different reasons.
I love both of those songs for equally awesome reasons.
Yeah, it's like they're two different, very different songs, but I love them both. And I do like when Priest kind of indulged in their darker side in this period.
Oh, absolutely. Whenever Priest built, see when they got like more just metallic in the '80s, they would hit this dark place, but I think they got a little nervous after I would say after the parent music people came after them
Well,
for
that happened in I think 1990.
no, that happened in like '88,
Oh, did it? Okay,
'89 ish. Yes, because they were
okay,
as they were filming the power I mean, not the power, the painkiller video, they were talking about the trial as it was going on. So
okay.
they were actually filming the painkiller music
Yeah,
video
so that would have been like a year before. All right, because I
as
knew it
the
was
trial was
associated
going
with
on.
Painkiller in
Right.
terms of time period. I figured it was going on when Painkiller was released, but
No, 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 no,
um,
no. This was like right during when Painkiller was being
yeah.
made, to be honest.
Okay, so this is 88, 89, probably.
Yeah.
And then we've got, and I really do enjoy the 70s Priest because they weren't afraid to go down that road. But songs like, Beyond the Realms of Death, Victim of
Yes.
Changes, like,
Victim of Changes,
and they had a
Exciter.
much bluesier vibe to them in this period. Whereas I think it was really, they were one of the ones defining what heavy metal is.
I really think the ballads are a little better during this period too, to be honest. The
Yeah.
slower songs. I really think you get a faster Priest in the '80s, but until you get to songs like I would say like heavy metal on off of heavy metal and both Blood Red Skies on Ram
On
It
Ram It
Down.
Down. Yep.
You don't get this kind of slower, more um I wouldn't say contrived, but more kind of focused on something more darker and brooding. That Blood
Yeah.
Red Sky, that songs like Blood Red Skies and songs like heavy metal off of Ram It Down definitely have to them.
Yeah. Ram It Down's another one that's kind of inconsistent for me. When it works, it fucking works. But
Mm.
overall, it's like there's a lot of songs there. I'm just kind of like, eh.
Yeah,
Whereas
that's the
this,
way I got to be honest. That's the way I feel about. I think this record, and for me, staying class too a little bit. It's for me, Modern Priest, and I hate to steal this, but for me, Modern Priest really starts at Killing Machine, Hellbent for Leather. I mean, and even that album has like stinkers on it. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying that. they're perfect records. I mean, but I really enjoy 70s Priest for what it is, and
Mhm.
what it is them kind of exploring what you can do with this new sound.
That's true. That's a good
Because there
point.
was no guide for where they were going musically. Like they were heavy metal at this point. Because even Sabbath
Absolutely.
was just a contemporary
Sabbath
of theirs. They
Sabbath had
were
put out Never Say Die or something like that, and that was as weak as they had ever put out an album up until that
yeah, like
point.
they were getting more and more commercial as they went along. So this is I think more of
Th-
a reaction to like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and stuff like that.
yeah, this is definitely like metal. This is like Long Live Rock and Roll. Definitely. I can feel those vibes. Definitely Priest and Rainbow are the ones carrying the flags for heavy metal at this point. Kiss,
Yeah, because you didn't have
unfortunately,
Saxon yet. You didn't
no
have
Saxon
Iron
yet.
Maiden.
No Iron Maiden. You don't have the new wave of British heavy metal until
No,
like
I mean Motorhead had
79.
just started in '77.
Motorhead had just started. So it's like, who else? Who else is carrying the banner? And
Pretty
it's
much
fucking
Priest,
Judas Priest.
Rainbow, maybe some early Queen
UFO
in the early '70s.
and Scorpions. That's about it.
Scorpions, yep. So that like that's it,
Yeah.
and maybe some UFO.
Yeah, I did. I did. Did I drop? I think I dropped UFO. A little bit.
UFO and
A little bit
Scorpions
of
are always
UFO. And
conflated,
Thin
but just
Lizzy.
they're very
But
similar
Thin Lizzy
bands.
was hard rock, like Ted Nugent was and Kiss was.
Yep.
And those were the big popular bands at the time in this era. But as far as like heavy metal was concerned, it was still being kind of, as Sabbath had gone down kind of the drain after Sabotage, really.
Yeah.
I mean, Sabotage, I think for Sabbath is like the most coked out creative, to be honest.
Which
And one of the,
the funny part is you can kind of see this um, mirror image of each other, where Black Sabbath started out really dark and heavy, and then got more and more commercial as they went along,
uh-huh.
up until 1980 when Heaven and Hell released. And then with Priest, they started off pretty commercial and mainstream with Rock and Rolla,
Hmm.
and then got progressively darker and heavier as they went.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And that's
So
a great
it was,
analogy.
and they both figured it out within a couple of records.
They both figured it out at the same time, to be honest.
Yeah, about 76, 77 is when both of them
Yep.
were like, this is what we want. This is what we're going to do.
Exactly.
And then Rainbow started in 76.
Yeah.
So, this is
Yeah.
the period where the book of heavy metal was being written, essentially.
Yeah. It was
Chapter 1, verse 1.
chapter 1, verse whatever. The pro. This is the chapter of modern proto metal.
Yeah, it's like this is like the genesis story of heavy metal, essentially, that you get to see happen over the course of like 2 records with Priest and in Rainbow, number 1.
Yeah.
And then you get to see Sabbath kind of struggling with who they are as a band, probably due to a lot of the conflicts in the band at that point. Because
Yeah, management was fucking them over, and I think just the drug thing was just
I was going to say,
really
I
bad.
know Tony had pretty much enough of Ozzy by then.
Yeah. Okay. So there were personality. It wasn't just the drugs. It was.
Oh, I mean, I think it was the drugs were a lot to do with it. Where like Tony, they all did drugs, but I think Ozzy, like that, he was way into it.
Yeah. Bill and Ozzy were the drinkers, and I think Tony and Geezer were the cokeheads and more the gear guys. They could get fucked up on the alcohol, but it was like, you know how Lemmy says that there's certain cliques within bands who do certain drugs, and then it kind of alienates, especially if if one clique has more power creatively over the other clique. So I think that's what would happen.
Well, that's certainly true that Tony and Geezer were the ones writing everything.
Yeah.
And it's kind of similar in Priest, where you have Rob, KK, and Glenn writing everything.
Yeah.
And then Ian, it's not because he didn't have a place in the creative team. He didn't want one.
Yeah, he didn't want one.
Like he said,
and they had gone through drummers like,
I just play bass. It's what I do. It's what I want to do. So like he doesn't want a position. And then their drummer is usually
the drummer on here is Simon Phillips. Yeah. So
these next 2 records, they have Les Bakes, who's a fantastic drummer.
Oh yes, but not on this album. On this album is Simon Phillips, who has been a journeyman, great fucking drummer, and he does an amazing job on this record. And I'm gonna give Les Banks his flowers because he really held down fucking Stained Glass and fucking Killing Machine. Like,
And that added a new element to their sound, I think, is you have these really slick drum tracks from Les on some of these, and even Simon on this one has some
and Simon, you get full on double bass speed. Like,
yeah. Whereas Les is more of a jazz drummer, so you get that kind of slick jazz feel to it.
Yeah,
it's really
especially
cool in
like,
its own right, and kind of changes their sound a little.
Yeah.
So even though he wasn't part of the writing team, really, he added a lot into the music just by being there.
Yeah.
And then once again, I mean, you can't say anything about the riffs on this record because it's KK and Glenn.
Right.
Like, they just make it perfect every time.
Yep.
Whether it be like, you know, kind of the more speedy stuff like "Let Us Pray" and Starbreaker,
you know, like,
or some of the more slick stuff like "Raw Deal" or "Here Come the Tears." Like, it's just smooth and just played to perfection. Nobody's overplaying everything. The way they have the mix set up for this is just right, too, where neither one of them's really overpowering the other one, and there's just enough reverb on it to give it this really cool echoey vibe, but not overdone.
Yeah.
Because I've seen bands go way too far with that, and it sounds like the album was recorded at the bottom of a well.
Yeah. Especially in this era where things weren't closely
figuring out how to do that.
They're just figuring out how to do that. And I don't like listening to this album on YouTube. It sounds way too. It doesn't have the kind of beef that when I listen to it in the CD with my car and my amplifier, it sounds like much better.
Yeah, if you get it set up with a really good stereo system, like, I don't mind listening to it on PC or whatever because I have my sound bar right here with the subwoofer under the desk.
Yeah, I have the same setup. I've had these Logitech speakers for over 20 years for a reason. Because I love them.
And when you find a set of speakers you like, you never get rid of them.
You never get rid of them.
These things sound amazing. You're mine now.
You're mine now, and I will go to like Frankenstein and do all kinds of like voodoo shit to make sure you last forever.
That's how you can tell a real music nerd is we will go to like stupid lengths to make sure our favorite speakers and record players still work.
I searched down because I had the CD player. I had searched down to find the one guy in the Bay Area who could fix the CD player that I had for me. Like, this is like back in 2018, 2019, and I finally found him. I didn't give a fuck if it cost like $300. I was making good money at the time. I did it. I don't regret it for 1 second.
No, absolutely. Like, when it comes to, like, even if it's just like, you can just buy another one, but I like that one.
Yeah, but I like that one. That one has the right kind of bass boost I like.
Yeah, exactly. It's like everybody has their own thing where it's just like, yeah, I know, like, I could just go buy another CD player or whatever, but I like that and want it to continue.
Let me tell you something. Shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Yes, never underestimate the power of duct tape, too.
Absolutely, man. And like, that's one of the reasons I like tube amps as much as I do. Not only do they sound great, but you can actually fix it.
Yeah.
Like, if something goes wrong in your amp, you can open up the back of it, replace the tubes, and try to figure it out rather than just having to go buy a new amp.
Yeah.
Or take it to an actual repair shop to get worked on, because I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't know how to do circuit boards and all that shit. I just know how to plug and play parts. But you can keep a tube amp running doing that and sounding pretty good. You know, and sometimes the more metallic ones, they're like limping along and barely functioning sometimes, but they sound great. So you keep it going. But the track listing on this one is right here, and I think it's well composed in terms of how it goes.
Oh, absolutely.
And Sinner is a really cool way to start off with.
Yeah.
Because it's much faster and much brighter than a lot of the stuff you saw on Sad Wings of Destiny.
Right. Do they downtune for this? Not downtune. Do they play in standard E compared to what the downtuning they did?
I think Priest usually plays in standard E.
Okay. So they played in standard E on Sad Wings of Destiny too?
I believe so. I know Richie, when he sent me the tuning stuff that he uses for his for the V, that he is in standard E.
Wow.
So
that sounds so dark just with standard E. That's incredible.
Well, it's also a 24 fret guitar, so you get a little bit more on the end of the neck.
You get a little bit more tonality. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So you get a little bit extra, but and in music, a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But
With the amps and the kind of things you can, even back then, sounds you can manipulate. Yeah.
oh yeah, I mean, half of these guys were intentionally running more current through their amp than they could handle, just so they could get that little more
A
distorted
little more
feel rather
distortion,
than
a little more fuzz. Yeah.
yeah. And it sounds extreme, but a lot of these guys they couldn't afford the pedals that they'd need to make that sound otherwise, if they even
Exactly.
existed. So
Exactly.
you just crank a little more energy through it and hope it doesn't blow up. And as all electrical guys know, it's all fun and games until the magic smoke gets let out of the box.
Mhm.
And Diamonds and Rust was an interesting one. It's not one of my favorites. It has a very disco feel to it.
It does. It really does. It feels like I was made for loving you before I was made for loving you. I hate to
Yeah,
say that. I love the version from Live at Budokan 2005 where it's more of a slow banger with just riffs.
yeah. I do dig that one. I do like this version of it, but it's a very odd one.
It's just for me, it's just too fast. It's too evocative, probably of the original, which is why I don't like it as much.
Fair.
Um, it just doesn't sound heavy to me. It just sounds just like them covering the Fleetwood Mac, and it just doesn't sound heavy to me. That's all.
Well, I mean, they do that again. They do that later with Green Metal Leaf Sheet. It sounds fantastic.
That sounds amazing, but can we give that to Les Banks too? Because that heavy
Probably.
drumming of his
And
on
that
that
swagger on the
that
guitar
song,
that you start hearing here more.
yeah,
With that kind of swaggery guitar riff where it's just like it's
right,
not fast, it's not like super technical, it's just cool.
yeah. Okay.
And it's really that's where I think this album's where that starts to shine through on a lot of stuff. Like
Yeah,
the next one, Starbreaker, is just a really cool swaggery kind of riff.
yeah.
Which I dig it. I named my V after it, but that is just a cool name. But I can see where people would consider it filler because it's a good song, but it is fairly generic.
It is generic, but it's still heavy enough for me to keep me entertained and
Yeah, there's
engaged.
enough
I like it.
Priest in it to keep me into it.
It's like I go Sinner, awesome, and then Diamonds and Rust, I'm like, okay, and then Starbreaker, I'm like, yes, this is awesome, and
It's like,
then
okay, we're 2 for 3 at this point, like 2
yeah,
and a
we're
half
2
for
for
3 at this
3,
point.
and then I really don't like Last Rose of Summer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
that's what
one of
let
the
down again. So
only
I'm like, I start high, and then I go low, and then I go back to high, and then I go back to low, and then Let Us Call a Priest or whatever, that gives me back to high, and then Raw View keeps me on high, and then Take Over the Tears, a little bit of a dip, and then they end really high with Distant Aggressor.
and the version I have has Race with the Devil on it, which I love that track.
Cool.
It's really cool blues riff. I'm pretty sure it's a cover they did of somebody else's stuff, but Last Rose of Summer, yeah, I mean, I get what they were going for and trying to appeal to a more broad audience, but the era when they had ballads on some of these records, there's a reason a lot of those are not remembered by the fans because they weren't very good.
And they were probably contracted to write some
A
bullshit like
lot of
that
that
by
is the record
Siegel
label.
or
You have to do
David
one for
Geffen.
radio play.
You have to, yeah, and that's why Priest probably didn't get a lot of radio play in the '70s, is because the ones that they did cut for the radio, nobody gave a fuck about, to be honest.
Well, and even then, the stuff that would have been suitable for radio in this period
Mhm.
um, would have been shorter tracks like Dissonant Aggressor, which was way ahead of its time in terms of tone.
Right,
Like this is
and would
thrash
only
metal
be
in
played
1977.
right, and would only be played on like college radio stations at like 12 midnight on like a Friday or a Saturday, basically.
Yeah, like it's like this was out there musically for the era. This was way faster and way louder than a lot of people were used to.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was shorter, I could see something like Sinner being on the radio, but
Mhm.
it's 6 minutes and 35 seconds.
Yeah.
No radio station is going to play a song that long. So
No, they're not.
Starbreaker is really it. and that's
Right.
not super short.
Right. It's over 5 minutes. So
Yeah, so like, and the rule of thumb, at least back then, was if it's over 5 minutes, we're not putting it on the radio.
right. I mean, they could have they could have done they could have put Diamonds and Rust on,
It could have.
radio.
I don't know that would have been a good
I don't
thing.
think that would have
It
done
would
them
be possible.
much better, because it's then when the listener comes in expecting like originals to sound like that, they're gonna be like, "What the fuck?" But they're not gonna know what to think.
Yeah, especially when you're on your third record or really just starting to make a name for yourself, you don't want your big song that's the single and your radio release to be a cover.
Right. Exactly. That's a good
So
point.
I can see why you wouldn't want that. So this album's really not set up for radio play all that well.
No, it's not. It's more of a for me. This album is definitely a stepping stone to something greater that would eventually kind of
I would
come to
say, like, not to
fruition.
sound like a purist with it, but this one's the one for the real fans.
Yeah,
Like, if you're just kind of into the Priest radio stuff or like into a specific period of Priest, this one's kind of not for you.
yeah. If you're just into '80s Priest, this one is not for you. If you're just into like Painkiller and shit like Jugulator and everything after that, this isn't for you. Even if you're into like the revival from like 2000 and now, that I would say this. You could
There's
probably
elements of
listen to
that.
this. You could probably listen to this, but just give it a chance. Give it
And
a
you've
couple
definitely
listens.
heard these songs on tour because I've seen the
Absolutely.
last two tours and they've been playing. I think the first time they did Starbreaker.
For me, they did Sinner.
Yeah, so
And it was,
they didn't do Sinner when I saw them, but they did do Tyrant and a couple of other ones from this period
yeah,
that are, you're going to
they-
hear these songs and you'll wonder why you've never heard it before. It's because it's on these earlier albums that people like
right.
to talk bad about. And there's reasons
Tyrant,
to, but
Tyrant, and Genocide were two that I got to hear live by Priest, and it was
and they
like,
sound
holy
fantastic live,
yes, they do.
especially in modern era.
In the modern era, with the guitars they got now, with the sound they define themselves as now,
Which if
everything sounds
if
amazing.
you guys want to see what they were playing on the last leg of their current tour, I did a video where when I came back, you can find it in the channel somewhere of my opinion of their live performance when I saw them last October and the track listing.
And for the fans who want to hear some of those songs as interpreted by Priest live, get the Priest Epitaph Blu-ray, because
Yeah,
it's a live list, and it's got all those songs on it that they do in like modern sound. And for me, Blood Red Skies has never sounded as good as
Blood
it
Red Skies I
does.
like on the record, and they managed to top it here.
They managed to top it there, and that's actually the song I use for a music video I did on my channel. So
And I'm really excited that they went back to their early intro for a live set where they went back to doing the Hellion and Electric Eye.
yeah,
Because to me, that's the greatest heavy metal intro of all time.
yeah, you can't get any better than that. I mean,
And it's one you own. It's not like you have to pay somebody else for it. So just
right, exactly.
go
So you
in.
use it.
Like, why would you not open a set like that?
Have you seen the video? Well, okay. First question is, did you get the 30th anniversary of Screaming for Vengeance when it came
No, I
out?
didn't. I still have the original vinyl around here somewhere.
Okay, I got the 30th anniversary because I wanted that Us DVD, the Us Festival DVD. My
Yep.
God, man, when they start with Electric Eye and then go right into it, it sounds so good, dude.
Well, I mean, you saw the video I took from October
Right.
when they
And
did
I'm talking
they
about
still
Priest in
sound
'83. Priest at the height of their powers doing that, and how they did it, where they have the PA play it, and then
Mhm.
they come in with the bow.
Oh god, I mean
Down.
that live intro, especially with the massive priest emblem coming down out of the ceiling,
That must have been nuts.
absolutely fucking awesome. Like these
That must
guys
have been
are
nuts.
still at the top of their game, despite
They
Rob
really
being
are.
71. He can still sing like a banshee.
He's gonna be 70. God, he's in his fucking 70s now. Our
Yeah,
parents are in our late 60s, early 70s, and we
but
know how the
it's
state
amazing
they're in.
that
It's incredible.
well, it's incredible that these guys are still going.
I know. Rock, heavy metal keeps you young. What can I say?
Well, I mean, especially there's bands that started decades later than them that are gone.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, Slayer called it quits, and they were what 82 to 2017 ish,
Yeah, 2017, 19. Yeah.
and then Priest has been going since 1970, and they're still a fucking band. And
Yeah.
from what I hear, their next album is coming. It's
Yeah.
almost done.
It's almost done. It should be late 2023, early
Yeah, and
2024.
from what I've heard Richie saying is it's going to be a lot more like this era of Priest, where it's a lot more
Yeah, it's
progressive.
going to be a lot more variety. It's not gonna be Firepower 2. And listen, fans, you don't want Firepower 2. You don't want Priest ending up doing the AC/DC thing. Let
Yeah,
Priest
where
be
they sound
Priest.
identical on every record.
Where they sound identical on every record, and they have to like really super dig in deep because they have to write the same song in a different way for like 8 times for each record all the time,
And
basically.
there are
And
bands that
that's
can
no
do
shot
that.
at AC/DC, by the way.
Yeah, it's like
That's what they
there
do.
are bands that can do that
They're
consistently.
bands that can do that.
AC/DC is
Slayer
one
can
of
do
them.
that.
Motorhead's another one where
Motorhead's
they
another
never
one.
change and they never should. Priest has never been that band where every album from them has had a different sound to it.
Yeah.
And
Even if you compare Redeemer of Souls to Firepower, the songs are heavy. The double bass is heavy. Everything is there that is on there in Firepower, but the way it's organized on Firepower works so much better than it does on
Redeemer
Redeemer
of
of
Souls is a
Souls.
lot more power metal than
Yeah.
Firepower.
Whereas
Firepower is
Firepower is
turned
just
to
straight
eight like
ahead
Defenders of the
metal.
Faith,
Yeah.
where they're just playing straightforward, headbanging heavy metal
Right.
the
And
entire
that's
time.
probably why I love Redeemer of Souls so much, because I'm a huge power metal
Well,
mark.
yeah, we're both power metal nerds, so we love that. I mean, we love both of them, but
Sword of Damocles and Battle Cry and Halls of Valhalla. That's just like,
Hold of
yeah.
Valhalla, they do every time live now, and god damn, that man can still hit that
God,
high
they
note.
didn't do it in 2018 at my show. God damn it.
Yeah, I've seen him do it live. It's incredible that he can still sing like that, but
That's incredible, man. Halls of
I
Valhalla. He's
fucking
just,
love that shit, where he's all the way in the basement too. He
yeah,
shut off
exactly.
all 6 octaves of his range, and everyone's just sitting there with their jaw on the floor.
71-year-old grandpa doing that. That's crazy.
And that's hard to do when you're my age,
That's hard. Yeah.
and he's doing it in his 70s. So the man is obviously not only talented as a singer, but really good at taking care of his voice too. Because there's been
Yeah.
plenty of singers who blow their vocal cords out.
And let me actually ask them this question. Have you seen the interview where Rob is sitting and Lemmy kind of surprise appears and asks Rob,
Yeah.
question, Rob? Oh, so you've seen it. Okay. And Rob says, just a little tea with lemon. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, and if that's actually the secret to it, there's a whole bunch of people who've been vocal coaches their whole life. Like, fuck, I've been doing this all wrong.
Also, Rob getting sober and not drinking since '86, that did it.
That definitely didn't hurt.
And these these fucking singers that sound like shit now, it's because they were drinking and binging like fuck during the '80s and '90s.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at Rob, he still looks good for his age.
He still looks good for his age. He's still built.
Look at guys like Vince Neil or freaking Axl Rose. They aged like freaking milk.
They can't sing for shit either.
No, they're terrible, and Vince Neil looks like he ate Vince Neil.
Yeah.
Axl Rose looks nothing like he used to.
I mean, he's still luckily he's lost some weight, or has he gained it all back?
I haven't seen him recently, so he's probably lost a little bit. But last time I saw him, it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, last time that was 20. When do they have? Who did they brought on some? Okay, he went to go sing for AC/DC, and that's
he was
the last time I
for a
remember.
while on tour, and
Yeah, well, I like some of it, but Brian Young deserves.
I was gonna say, like, we're at the point where if it's not Brian, don't try.
Yeah,
Because obviously Bond's dead, so you can't do that. But if it's not Brian Johnson, like, come on, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've loved that meme for a long, long time.
That take of the man, like exact facts. That meme's hilarious. I've never seen that meme before, Soul Fest, and thank you for
Oh, it's
telling me
great.
about
It's like I'm literally the guy in the picture.
it.
Oh god, that one was good. Especially because the man just disappeared out of the spotlight for like 25 years and then came back as the singer of an all new band, essentially.
Right,
It's
right.
still, I mean, when they released Chinese Democracy, let's face it, it's called GNR. It's not GNR.
Yeah. Here's the thing about singers and drinking. And I just want to say this one more time as a former drinker myself. If I had that kind of singing ability, if I had the singing ability of Don Dokken, if I had the singing ability of a Paul Stanley, or even a Blackie Lawless, I would. Well, Blackie still sounds good, even though there are some alleged accusations of tape using. But I'll just leave that out of it. But especially Don Dokken, all of the Jack and Cokes, that's what did him
Certainly
in,
didn't help
man.
him.
Yeah. And Vince Neil, all the Jack and Cokes. I mean, if you're not Lemmy and you're not going to sound like that, and you've got a clean, high falsetto voice that you can scream, don't fucking drink. Period.
Yeah, or
Don't
don't drink,
smoke.
or
Don't
don't
drink.
go out and get hammered every night, all night.
Exactly. Look
Like
what
Dio
Dio
drank a
did.
little bit here and there, but he was never
Right.
like
Dio
a
drank and smoked a little weed here and there. Maybe, but he would have wine, and he would have just like half a joint and be ready to go.
yeah,
These
and
guys drank Jack Daniels all the time. So we're telling you, vocalists, if you've, especially in the new wave of traditional heavy metal, do not drink and
like
smoke
just
if you're the
or if you're
vocalist.
going to, just take care of your voice and keep it in the back of your mind. If you want to have a
Yes,
career 20 years from now,
yes.
take care of your vocal cords
Take
because
care of your vocal
they're going
cords,
to take care
man.
of you.
They'll take care of you. Trust us.
It's like
We're the expert. I'm
unless
an
you're
expert.
Lemmy, who started out sounding like he smoked 3 packs and drank a bottle of whiskey a day because he did.
Because
You don't
he's
want to sound
Lemmy
like
and he's supposed to sound like that.
yeah, exactly. It's like that wasn't a bug; it was a feature.
Yeah, exactly.
Lemmy's
Yep.
supposed to sound like the guy, like the grizzled old veteran sitting at the bar with a guitar in his hand.
Yep.
But that's part of his charm. But there's only one of those.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to clone Lemmy.
That's just a good idea in general, Lord Thoth. If you're gonna drink water. Actually, even if you're not going to drink water. It's good for you.
And if you're going to do drugs, do the kind of drugs that Motorhead does. They don't fuck up your voice.
Yeah,
Just
apparently
avoid.
speed doesn't do much to your vocal cords. I can't say the same about your heart, but
Yeah. Forgot who said it, but when they met Lemmy, he opened a bottle of Jack and handed it to them. And before you can give it back, Lemmy was already opening another bottle. Praise Lemmy.
that sounds about right, Soul Assassin. That sounds exactly like something Lemmy would do. But no, I mean, imagine hearing this for the first time though in '77. Like this album is out there for its time,
It must have blown people's minds. It would have blown
especially
my
for like
mind
Christian
listening it.
Aggressor.
Just the speed of it would have blown my mind.
The speed combined with the heaviness of it, because like you'd had fast songs like Highway Star and stuff like that before,
Right.
but you hadn't had that combined with that bone crushing heaviness of a Black Sabbath or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I know now where the sound for thrash metal came from, because it was guys like Dave from Megadeth and James from Metallica listening to this.
Yeah. Oh, and Kerry King.
Dad.
With you remember that Tokyo show where
Yep.
it was him and Marty Friedman, and Dissident Aggressor is one of the songs he played with Marty Friedman.
Yeah, and they both have been open to it. It's like that song was hugely important to them musically, and it's clear to see why going forward here.
Exactly.
Like obviously there's a reason that, and you can hear a lot of it in early Diamond Head too.
Okay.
Songs like Am I Evil have a lot of
definitely
heaviness, kind of more like a Sinner. Have you heard the remake they did in 2020?
No, I haven't.
There's some interesting covers on that, including Sinner.
Interesting.
It's heavy as fuck. I'll send it to you after the show. You're gonna love it.
Okay.
And they re-recorded Lightning to the Nations.
Okay.
So they did Am I Evil, Lightning to the Nations, all that shit. And they also did a metal cover of the Immigrant Song.
All right, you have to send me that.
Yeah, it's fire, dude. I love it. But no, this album, it's like I don't know if it's in my top 5 because of its musicality necessarily, or maybe I just like it that much, but also what it represents. And this is Priest fully formed and starting to play. Because like Sad Wings of Destiny, even they were still figuring it out as a band. I think they changed members a couple times here and there, and we're still figuring out who did what and all that. And don't get me wrong, I love that album, but I think this is where they kind of glued it all together and come together as a cohesive unit. In that, this is really the first example of Priest iterating on something they'd already done. Whereas Sad Wings of Destiny basically came out of a clear blue sky.
True. And it's very
rock and roll
bluesy.
Sounds nothing like it.
Yeah, and it was very, very bluesy. It was heavy and it was very bluesy too.
Which is a really weird direction to go from rock and roll, which was very generic, very mainstream rock and roll,
and
then come out with a titanic, heavy blues album like Sad Wings of Destiny, and then they kind of combined elements of both of it into here.
Yes.
And so you can see both sides of that band.
You can see both sides of the band
working as it should. Like, because there's later albums where you see both sides of the band, but not in a cohesive way. It's very disjointed. It's almost like it's having a fight with itself.
Which albums would you say?
Turbo's like that.
Yeah.
Ram It Down's like that.
Yeah. Okay. I hear what you're saying.
Even parts of Defenders of the Faith can get like that, where like it's kind of like, okay, well, which way are you going here?
Yeah, Demolition's like that.
Yeah, so it's like Priest has these periods when they kind of have an album where they're not sure which direction they want to go next, and they kind of go both ways.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I'm not really a fan of because it doesn't have a cohesive message.
Yeah.
And overall, this is an album I can honestly say it's not all killer, no filler, but you can listen to the whole album and not regret it.
Yeah, I would say, and it's not that long of an album. It's not an overly
it's
long
only 8 tracks.
album.
I think it's like 40 minutes total.
40 minutes, yeah. So throw it in. So 40 minutes are done.
Yeah, it's not a hugely long album, and and most of the songs are really good. So it's not like, oh well, this entire album is just kind of meh except these 2 songs. Like, no, most of this album is pretty high quality.
Right.
And while it doesn't have the peaks of Sad Wings of Destiny or Stained Class for that matter, I think the album is just as consistent overall, if not better. Or maybe I just like the songs on it better than Stained Class.
But I like this album and Stained Class for equally different reasons. I like Stained Class because it has more of that more thick rhythm going for it, and it still has a lot of the elements of Sad Wings of Destiny that I really like. The real darkness of it, not victim of changes beyond the realms of death. This album reminds me. This album is just so fucking like speed metal-ish. It's for me. It stands out. It's not. It's really not that dark. Listen to it. It's really not that dark.
Yeah, it's very bright speed metal. So it's
very bright speed metal. Thank you.
And much more like power metal you'll hear in the 80s.
Yeah, much more like, you will definitely hear the thrash influence, and you will definitely hear the speed metal influence.
Yeah, but I mean, between these guys and Motorhead, they basically created that sound in this year.
Yeah.
And so it's no wonder you see black metal and thrash pop up almost immediately after this.
Yeah.
Because really, the funny thing is everyone assumes that it was thrash metal that influenced black metal. It was the other way around.
Yeah.
Because Venom was an influence on Slayer and Metallica as well.
Yeah. And Megadeth.
And obviously Megadeth through Metallica. Because there's famous pictures of both James and Dave wearing Venom t-shirts.
Wearing Venom shirts, welcome to hell, while holding pitchers of beer.
Yep. So I mean, they were clearly listening to some Venom, and let's face it, is Slayer's first record can be listened. If you listen to Slayer's first record, it's straight up.
It's Venom all like Venom worship. Yeah, it's Venom worship.
It's straight up right out of the playbook. Same thing with Exodus, really.
Mhm.
who we're going to talk about next time, I think.
Okay.
But and that's what I love about doing this channel is connecting the dots between all these bands that never really were in the same area or played together all that much until way
Right.
later.
And Sin After Sin is a real outlier because it's so unique in the Priest discography prior to the 80s stuff.
Yeah, and it wasn't afraid to, and this is one thing I've always loved about Priest. It's the reason they're my favorite band and why they've done so much right, and also so much that fans are divided on is they're not afraid to do something that sounds different.
Right.
And if they have an idea, they'll play with it. And if people like it, great. If not, well, they'll go back to the drawing board and try again.
Yeah.
And you can pick up two different Priest albums from the same period. Like my favorite example is Point of Entry. British Steel does not sound like Point of Entry. It sounds nothing like
No,
Freezer at all.
yeah. Nothing like it. It's
There's
you
three
really
very
have
different
to
records, and all
appreciate.
three of them kick ass.
Yeah, all three of them kick ass. You really have to appreciate Point of Entry. You have to listen to it again and again and again. I would
In
listen to
fact, that
Heart
was a
Rock.
contender for what we were going to do today. And you mentioned that this recently celebrated its 46th anniversary. So
46th anniversary this year, a couple of days ago.
So
I think April 6th.
46 years old, and people are still talking about this record. They must be
Released
doing something
April.
right.
It was released yesterday, April 8th.
Okay, so it's 46 years ago yesterday. This album was released on the world, and you can clearly see its impact later on down the track. And just like everything we do here, I would recommend you go listen to this for yourself. I don't think you'll regret it. And like we said, it's not that long a record.
It's not that long a record. It's very inexpensive to buy as a CD on Amazon. I think it's less than $10.
But do
So if you
yourself a
want,
favor, and even if you don't like the intro or whatever, listen to the whole
right.
song.
Listen
A
to
lot
the
of these
song.
songs get way better towards the end.
Right.
I would say Here Come the Tears is like that, where it starts very, very slow and then kind of picks up. Last Rose of Summer, it's worth listening to, and if for no other reason than why you shouldn't listen to it again. It's in a weird spot too. Usually the ballad takes place like kind of towards the middle or end. They put this one right at number 4.
I know.
Especially after a fast-paced song like Starbreaker.
Yeah, that's Priest. They're like you said, they're figuring out as it goes along.
True, yeah.
Including
this is only their third record, so you're still making mistakes like that.
You're still making mistakes as far as like the song, because let's be honest, not a lot of artists take into consideration always the album placement. Back then, if they were smart, they did, but now even it's worse because everybody's releasing like out of like singles, really, and they're not releasing albums
when you
anymore.
look at it nowadays, it's taken the idea that started in the 50s with 45 records to its natural extreme.
Yeah.
Of a la carte, basically, where you can just buy one song if you like that song. Whereas I like buying these as albums because you're getting the whole story and the whole piece as the band wanted to show it to you.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
And re-released in all these weird ways where you've only heard half of it.
Exactly. It's exactly why I've also bought. I'm not a big live album buyer, but I bought Ice Earth Alive in Athens finally.
How is that?
On CD. On CD after all these years because I wanted to hear how John Schaefer placed the track listing for his entire set that he would perform for 3 hours.
Right back, guys.
So I was just basically saying how bands who used to like really think about it when it mattered, how they would not only write the songs and create the songs, but how the songs would be placed on the album in order to kind of flow between each song. Priest makes an interesting choice here because they start with something fast and go with something a little poppy, and then they start with something a little more heavy and then go with something very ballady. And then let's call the Priest is something heavy as fuck, is a little similar Here Come the Tears. I can't remember, but I know Dissident Aggressor for sure is totally thrash and speed metal influenced. It's less than 3 minutes. Go listen to it right now. Dissident Aggressor. Oh, and a bunch of bands have covered the song. So if a bunch of bands have covered this particular Judas Priest song, you know it's going to be good. Period.
Especially when one of those is Slayer. I don't like their cover of it, but the fact that they covered it means this was a big effect on them, and they covered it fairly early on in their career too.
Okay. Was that on? Well,
I forget which album that's off of, but it's in their 80s material. I think it's like 85, 86, somewhere in there.
Okay. I'll probably hunt it down.
Yeah. And surprisingly, Hailstorm did a cover of Dissident Aggressor.
Really?
Yeah, and it kicks ass.
Wow.
Like, I heard it a few years ago, and it absolutely smokes.
Cool.
Which, if there's a female singer out there who can do Rob Halford well, it would be Lizzie Hale.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised by that because they're much more on the hard rock side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I know she's a headbanger, but the rest of the band's kind of more of a generic rock and roll crowd. And then they came out with that. I was like, holy shit, okay. Yeah, so like clearly this out, and I've heard somebody, I forget who, cover Starbreaker. So like clearly, like this album has a lot of significance to bands. A lot of people have done different covers off of this record.
Yeah.
Including other big name bands like Diamond Head, Slayer, Hailstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys are.
I did not know that. I definitely didn't know about Hailstorm, and I definitely didn't know about Slayer. So
I just remembered it when I was listening to the album before the show. I'm like, wait a minute, like, yeah, a whole bunch of people did covers of this song, which rightfully so. I mean, it has its own place in metal history as kind of the first exemplar of thrash.
Thrash and speed, absolutely. And certain songs, absolutely thrash and speed. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean this album is the archetype for speed metal and one of the prototypes for thrash.
I would agree. I would agree with that statement 1000%.
There's more than a little, just straight up heavy metal
hard rock
that would go on to just kind of define the trad heavy metal genre too.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something to be said for that when you're basically writing the book on what to do in a musical genre, and this is what you come up with.
Right.
Like, it's not everybody's taste, but if you're into some of the more experimental stuff, this is absolutely fantastic. Because it's a little less formulaic, a little more just kind of trying things out and seeing what works.
Right. If I had to say there's like two songs.
You kind of see them evolving their sound over what works as the albums go along here. Because, you'll hear a lot of this album in Stay in Class.
Right. Exactly.
Even more of Stay in Class in Hellbent for Leather.
Right.
And then British Steel.
With Hellbent for Leather, for me, is it is the start of Hades Priest, to be honest. Because if you
they kind of started a year early.
Well, you could say Stay in Class, but for me, they were still wearing their leotards on stage, and so only KK has the leather going.
Like that was just how 70s metal bands looked.
I know, but listen to Rob's vocals. Rob has this snarl on Killing Machine. He doesn't have as much of it on. Now, I'm going to make this claim, and I'm going to re-examine it. I'm going to go back and listen to Stay in Class to make sure. But that kind of like snarl and the rolling of the R's that he does, that comes with Killing Machine. Yeah. That comes with Killing Machine.
I mean, it does get aggressive at points. Like, God knows, Beyond the Realms of Death is heavy enough.
Yes.
And songs like, and you of course have speed metal with Exciter. And Exciter itself has a great heavy metal riff to it. Like, you can basically see all the sounds that Priest does really well in their repertoire kind of start taking shape in Stained Glass.
Right.
And they do
like
it all in
yeah,
the
the title track especially. You know,
and
Stained Glass.
Killing Machine, and then Killing Machine does it even better.
Yeah.
And then you have British Steel, which solidifies a lot of it. And then they changed their sound up in '81 with Point of Entry.
That's them doing Devo or some shit. Or
Yeah,
what's the band with like red caps, red like soul? That's Devo.
Which I like it. I dig the record, but it works for a very different reason than British Steel.
It's not. It's a dip commercially for them because when you come out with British Steel, the expectation is you're going to get heavier. That like the logical jump from British Steel is Screaming for Vengeance.
And I think this album, I think Point of Entry suffers for being in between British Steel and Screaming for Vengeance, two of the most almighty classics that Priest has ever released.
It suffers from that, and it also suffers from management and record interference.
Yeah,
record label interference.
And for those reasons, I think it's not as well looked at as an album as the other two, because it came in the middle of two of absolute titans that every metalhead ever owns.
Yeah.
So it kind of pales in comparison to the two of them.
It's like the forgotten '80s album. That and Ram It Down. Well, Ram It Down isn't as forgotten because of the cover art, but
yeah,
Point of Entry is definitely the forgotten Priest album.
Yeah, that's definitely the middle child of the group.
That's the middle child. Everybody likes to say Turbo is the black sheep, but the middle child that gets forgotten is Point of Entry.
Well, I think that's because people actively dislike Turbo. Everyone just kind of forgot about Point of Entry.
Yes. Okay, I would agree with that statement.
And people kind of forgot about this one for a long time too.
True.
Including the band at some points. Like they went for long periods without playing pretty much anything off of this.
Yeah.
Until the more modern era. And I think it took Richie coming into the band and like kind of
it took Richie. I don't know how much I don't think even the Ripper era has the songs on the live sets that this one had. I mean, not that they currently do with Richie in the band. That's what I meant to say.
And it had the ability to come in and be like, hey, why don't we start playing this stuff in the live set again? Like, because it's been like 20 years since you've played some of it. I think a couple of the ones on the 2019 tour had never been played live since Killing Machine. So I think he really like kind of made them look back at what they had been doing previously. Like, hey, we haven't done this for a long time. How about we go do that? Something a little different. And a lot of deeper cuts on the live set than you used to have too. Because like obviously you're going to hear Hellbent for Leather. Obviously you're going to hear Breaking the Law, and obviously you're going to hear You Got Another Thing Coming.
Correct.
And Living After Midnight. Like you're going to hear those songs.
You're going to hear those songs.
Period. But the rest of it, they can go a lot of different ways with it. I mean, they can go for kind of slower paced, darker stuff off of the early stuff. They can go for the straight up 80s headbangers. Like they've got a whole 50-year catalog that they can just kind of pull from.
Yeah.
And give you whatever they want you to have that night. And to the point where Saxon has the same problem. How do you decide what to put on a live show when you're at this point in your career?
Let the fans choose.
But at the same point, you've got to choose what to put on a live set, and you're looking through your discography like, oh yeah, shit, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
And sooner or later you got a song list that's a couple hundred long, and you've only got an hour and a half set.
I'm telling all the Judas Priest fans, these fuckers have never played Judas Be My Guide, ever.
That's
live,
right.
Ever.
How did they not play that live?
How did they not play that live? It's a slower paced song, and even though they're at the age they are, they can still play it. It's a short 3-minute little banger. People have waited years, absolute years,
and there was one off of Hellbent for Leather that they'd never played live since then.
No, I'm talking about Maiden. Judas Be My Guide.
Oh yeah, but there was one Priest did back in the day, I think, off of
Running Wild.
Running Wild. They had not done it live since then.
Oh, yeah, because I heard the Halford band. Have you heard the Halford Insurrection version of Running Wild? That's a great version. That's the version they should be doing with Priest
And I
right now.
mentioned this in my episode on Racer X with Union of Amateur Strategists, but the song off of Insurrection, "Heart of a Lion," is a
Hmm.
cover of a Racer X song that was originally written by Judas Priest.
Fucking A. I
So
didn't know that.
basically, Priest wrote the song, and they didn't really have a place for it to fit
Yeah.
on their record. So Rob Halford was friends with Paul Gilbert,
Hmm.
so he gave it to them to record, and then obviously Scott Travis ended up in Judas Priest
Fucking A.
after
That's
that,
awesome.
and then Priest hasn't recorded it yet, but Halford did.
That's amazing.
So
I
it's like
had
the wheels within wheels kind of freaking shit you'll see in heavy metal from time to
I've
time.
known Priest for most of my life. I have never heard that story before. That's
I
awesome.
didn't know it before I went and did the research for the episode. I'm like, wait a minute, like I know Heart of a Lion. Wait, Halford did that, didn't he? And then sure enough, apparently, it's like I figured Halford did a cover of the Racer X song because Scott Travis was in Priest.
Right.
But no, apparently he gave it to Paul Gilbert, who played it with Scott Travis, and then Travis ended up in Priest, and then Halford played it with his other band.
Right.
Freaking weird. It's like 6 degrees of songwriting.
Yeah.
But it was one of those. It's a kick-ass track too. Like if you guys have not heard Halford's Insurrection album, go listen to it. It's amazing.
Yes. One of the greatest live albums ever. Period.
I've heard it described as the best Priest album never made.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's what everyone wanted late '90s Priest to sound like.
Yes. Yes.
It's
And
heavy as
they
fuck.
basically
Fast
gave
as
us
hell.
that with Angel of Retribution.
They did. It took them until 2005 to do it,
It
but
took
you
them
know,
until
they got it.
2005. But if you want to know how mean of a singer Rob Halford can be when he's doing his meaner vocals as opposed to his cleaner vocals, go listen to Halford Insurrection and get the version prior to it being remastered because I think that has it's a little bit less
Okay.
digital than than the um
Yeah,
than
I
the
haven't heard.
remaster.
I haven't heard the remaster. I only have the original copy of it.
Yeah, keep the original. The remaster sounds just a little off to me for some
And
reason.
you know, sometimes remasters do that where they just play a little too much and end up taking something out that should have stayed in.
Yes, sometimes they do that. They unfortunately remasters today have to be made for the iTunes and Apple Music crowd, and a lot of the times they take out a lot of what makes the heaviness of the song the heaviness. Like for instance, I really don't like any of the Dio remasters, but I love the Dio versions of the songs on the very Beast of Dio. Back
Sure.
when they had like the remastering technology was just prior to that was more based for CD playing rather than
Yeah.
iPod or streaming.
And complaining about like the audio quality and stuff like that, which people do now, and I just cringe every time I read it anywhere. It's like, oh, this sounds really muddy and whatever. Just like it's metal. Grow a dick. Like, of course,
Yeah.
it sounds a
Well,
little muddy and shit. It was recorded in 1975.
yes. But there are some excellent remasters. Listen to the
Yeah,
Van Halen remasters. Those are some of the best remasters I've
they
ever
did
heard in
a
my life.
solid job of just cleaning it up a little bit, and
Just that's what I'm talking about. All you need to do is just clean it up. You don't need to adjust it. You don't need to digitally compress it. You just need to clean it up. That's
yeah,
it.
it's like a 50s car. You don't need to modify or play with the body at all. Just give her a good wash and a wax, and she'll look good.
Yeah. Give her a good wash or wax. Make her look nice and shiny for 2023. Period. It's
And
like the
yes,
it,
he used to sing in a choir, Soul Assassin, in school.
choir. Actually, I think he was also in the wasn't he like a Sunday? I'll have to look
The
this
church
up.
choir,
But
yeah, I
yeah,
think so.
church choir. Yeah, he was in a church choir.
So he has been singing for a very long time, but yeah, he is very well trained. And
Mhm.
Papa Cotton, I have not heard Ghost's new track yet. I just saw it was released this morning, but I haven't listened to it yet. But I will definitely give that a spin because I'm a huge Ghost fan, and any Ghost song where they're talking about Jesus should be an entertaining time. given their proclivities. But I'll let you guys know what I think on that one. But yeah, like we've been saying, listen to this record for yourselves. It's not one I'll recommend to everybody, and but it's well worth playing.
I'll recommend this song. Sorry to cut you off. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention?
It's well worth playing. It's a very different sound for Priest, and some of their more different stuff is some of the stuff I really gravitated towards. So give it a spin and see what you think.
I would say listen to this album if you want to hear the real origins of speed metal and thrash metal come from, because it's not Anvil. It's really more like this stuff, and then you get into Motorhead, and then you get into basically 79 80s Priest with Killing Machine and British Steel, and that is the beginning of thrash metal, in my opinion. That's where it really kind of convalesces. If you listen to Rapid Fire and you speed it up just a little bit, you've got No Remorse, and you've got a version of Hit the Lights. So
yep, and I believe they've done a live cover of Rapid Fire with Rob Halford.
Yes, they have. He was actually invited to their 2011 38th anniversary tour, which I still kick myself because the tickets were like $46, and I just didn't have the time to get away to go up to the Fillmore for one goddamn fucking night and see it. And that was the night Rob Halford was there, and they had King Diamond come there, and they had Dave Mustaine come there. It was just
that would have been cool to see them with Dave, because that almost nobody ever saw that.
Yeah, I think they had Dave plus Jason. They had Jason obviously come back and do some songs. They had Ron McGovern. They had Ron McGovern, and they had Diamond Head come all the way from England to do Am I Evil with them on stage.
That's kick ass. And for as much shit as I give Metallica richly deserved, they do remember where they came from, and they do really like to celebrate the art.
They love their heroes, dude. They're fans. They're fucking nerds like us.
Yeah, it's like when
we come off as nerds to them because
about their influences, they nerd out like we're doing right now.
Right, exactly.
So like it's really cool to see them get to play with a lot of their heroes, because let's face it, who wouldn't want to play with Glenn Tipton?
Exactly.
Or some of those guys. But no, it's well worth a listen, and I would recommend this era of Priest if you're looking for something a little slower, a little more progressive musically. This is probably the Priest you want to be listening to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I really dig it for that reason. But then again, I love everything this band's ever done, even some of the less popular stuff down the track. But with that being said, man, what do you got going on this week?
I'm completely busy. I probably won't be available next Sunday. I'm still just basically in just on a different level where I just got to get stuff done. And you can still find me on Twitter at the Sentinel 831, and you can find me on Instagram at Sentinel 43.
Yep, and you can find him on YouTube at.
You can find me on YouTube.
A video the other day, right?
Did I?
I popped up on my feed not too long ago. I don't know when it was released.
I think I might have made a community post. Let me just quickly. I've been focusing on a lot of Star Wars stuff, and it's gotten me kind of distracted from some of the metal stuff. But that's
man, the Star Wars stuff this week has been absolutely hysterical.
It really has. I mean, I'm about to go have a conversation with a friend about it right after this. So
the Star Wars Celebration shit was just like, oh my god, they've learned nothing.
They've learned nothing.
They've learned less than nothing.
It's Bob Iger. It's all Bob Iger. He's protecting Kathleen Kennedy, and she wants to go the gynocentric route.
Yeah, and well, not only that, they're bringing back Rey.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're going the gynocentric route. They're having every fucking female have her own show. Even the Acolyte is female led.
Yeah, and well, not only that, they brought back the one everyone already hates.
Right.
It's like, oh god,
nobody buys her action figures. There's stacks and stacks of fucking Ray action figures at Ollie's for $2. World Class Bullshitters has covered this multiple times. This shit don't sell. Grogu sells. Grogu with his.
And Drinker brought up in his video that when a non-verbal fucking puppet does better than your lead character,
You fucked up.
Yeah, it's like that's not good.
That's not good.
Like, don't get me wrong. Everyone loved Yoda and R2 and all of them, but everyone loved Luke and Han way more.
Yeah.
So. And Rey, everyone just kind of like, yeah, no, I'm all set.
Yeah.
Like, she was just there.
Fuck that bitch. I'm sorry, but I as a fan of the expanded universe, I just saw her as just discount. She was a proxy for Kathleen Kennedy and her Clitnik power trip.
And
she's a proxy,
complete with her being bland, uninteresting, and having nothing of value to add.
Exactly, and having all these powers without ever earning them.
Yeah, without ever doing anything to earn them, because
because she was basically given the power.
For those of you who hear her claim that she worked on the original trilogy, yes, she did. She was an intern. She got George coffee.
And she was, and let me say, the greatest argument against affirmative action is that's the only way Kathleen Kennedy got a job after she was in Berkeley, California, couldn't find a job anywhere, and that's the only reason she got a job is because they introduced some kind of affirmative action shit at either UC Berkeley or somewhere in Oakland, and that's how she got a job. That's how she
got an internship with this little known company called Lucasfilm.
Exactly.
And oops. 40 years later, she's running it without ever having.
40 years later, she's running probably the Cadillac of franchises and has crashed it so bad. Cars in the Ghetto with their wheels gone look in better shape than what she's done to Star Wars.
For those of you who are into firearms, she's Cadillac, but she's running the business like Keltec.
Yeah.
Where. Yeah, they do some good things, but it's attached to some really odd things. Like the KSG-12, where it's a nice pump action shotgun and holds 12 rounds. It's also very odd in that it's got a very odd layout. And like that's one thing Keltec always does is they're not afraid to be very different, but different isn't always good.
Oh, and Soul Assassin, if you want to throw up, and you will. I'm sorry, I'm about to ruin Temple of Doom for all of you guys, but you know the dancers at the beginning of Temple of Doom with the Kate Capshaw. All those dancers in the same dancer outfit. One of them is Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh no!
There you go. I just ruined the beginning of Temple of Doom for you.
Oh. That's when you know you're reviled. Is just knowing you're in a scene of a movie makes people hate.
And nobody knows who the fuck you are because everybody looks the same.
Yep. And it was. I kind of want somebody to like frame by frame it, figure out which one she is, and then post like the famous Forces female post.
I would love that. I would love that.
Oh,
yeah. If they can find out which one, that would be hilarious.
But Jesus, now that I know that
I know I'm sorry, but there is a I got to do this. I'm sorry. Hold on. I got to do this. Hold on. Shit, my fingers are all fucked up. Temple of Doom Dancer. I've got to do this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Soul Assassin. I saw that video of her walking out on the stage, and everyone's just kind of sitting there staring at her, like, "Oh, it's you, cool."
I've got to do this. I'm so fucking evil.
Oh no!
All right, hold on.
Why am I letting this happen on my show?
I'm sorry, but
why am I letting this happen to me?
I am evil. Hold on. Let me see if I can get it. Shit. All right, I got to remove my. Come on. It's not letting me put up an. Oh, there it is. Okay, maybe I can put up an avatar now. Edit all of it. Okay, shit. Okay, hold on. Oh, there it is. There's the X. Delete. Sorry, Priest. I have to do this. Hold on.
It's all for the memes.
It's all for the memes. Blow that up.
Oh no, what do we got?
Dum, da
Oh
dum,
my
dum,
god, no, yeah, you're right. She's
dum,
better
da
than the
dum,
camera too.
dum, dum. And she
Oh
is that dumb.
no. Oh
Yes. If you ever need anything to help you vomit, look at that picture.
yeah. God
All
damn it.
right. I'll get it off the screen. I'll kill it with fire. There.
Yeah, right.
Bye-bye. All
Oh,
right. Come on, get off the screen.
now
God
that I
damn it. I'm
now
sorry.
that now that I know that, I will never look at that scene the same way again.
I
But
can't. I have to say I'm gonna have to skip that scene. It's gonna have to be
it's to the
skipped
point
every
where
single
I
fucking
can't
time.
even watch the original trilogy anymore because I know where it all leads now.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay.
I have the Star Wars EU, so none of this Disney Star
Oh
Wars
yeah, I
shit is
mean,
real
I
to me.
still read the old novels and stuff because it's just like, yeah, that was a bad dream that never happened, and here's what really
Yeah, it was like a bad dream. It never it kind of
Unfortunately,
never happened.
they're starting to try to invade even that cope by trying to
Yeah.
steal parts of the EU.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Thrawn
So
was in Rebels, and he's going to be in the main line. I think in Ahsoka.
that's why I don't want them touching any of the EU stuff.
No,
All these,
I would really encourage Star Wars fans to stop reminding Lucasfilm that the EU exists. It just encourages them to steal from it.
yeah, and all these young fans who are just so fucking stupid naive. They're 13 to 18, and they're like the future of like fans of the EU because a lot of us are older, and they want Disney to continue the EU. I'm like, you really want Sam Max to write the story of Jaina Solo's Sword of the Jedi trilogy? Are you
Yeah,
fucking smoking meth?
yeah. It's just like they'll go away eventually. Just
Just
don't
leave it
mention that.
alone. The
Bring it
best
back
thing
up
they
once they're
did,
gone.
ironically, is fucking decanonize it. Is decanonize it and completely ignore it exists.
Yeah, and that insulated it from a lot of the Disneyfication process.
And
Of
it insulated it.
it.
And then Filoni introduced Disney Thrawn from the era
Well, that was the
of
thing.
the Empire
I
trilogy,
think
which
Favreau was kind of trying to separate Disney Star Wars from the EU, but then Filoni started taking shit from it, and he's just like, "God damn it, Dave! Why did you tell them about that?"
Favreau and Filoni go way back. They go back to the original TCW show where
Yep.
they got Favreau because Favreau was at Lucasfilm doing some of the digital, looking at like the digital work for Iron Man 2. And
Yeah.
that's how Dave found him and said, "Hey, listen, are you a Star Wars fan? You want to voice a character on the show I'm doing?" And then years later, Dave and Favreau are brought back as like the creative tandem behind the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh yeah, I mean,
And
they've been doing
everybody
the
is just like
Mandalorian.
losing
They've
their
been
shit
basically
over it. And
running the
now you've got a situation with the Mandalorian season 3, and it's the shit. It's like the shitters. It's like they ran out of ideas because they don't have a plan. They never had a plan.
No, they didn't, and it's quite clear. It's the same problem Marvel has, where they didn't once they ran out of road, they had no idea where to go. So now they're just making the thing after the thing, and just kind of trying to get some momentum going, and it's just dying.
Yeah,
Like my soul every time I see them release new Star Wars product.
yeah.
Because like I always say it this way, like in 2016, do you have any idea how hard you had to work to get me not to want to watch Star Wars? And now I can barely even stand to see it mentioned.
Yeah.
It's one of those like, oh, cool, a Star Wars show. Not going to watch that.
Right.
I'm the same. I was the same way with Trek until Strange New Worlds, where it actually at least feels like Trek again. Like it's not perfect, but we're approaching Trek. It was movement in the right direction. Unfortunately, this new Starfleet Academy show seems like it's going to be absolute dreck because it's set in the 32nd century and it's following one of the characters from Discovery. So, but yeah, man, we'll see where they go from here. But it's going to be fun. It's either going to be fun because it's good, or it's going to be fun because we're going to make fun of it. But either way, you guys can always find me here every Sunday for Rock and Roll Religion. And don't worry, Soul Assassin, Warhammer will be gatekept. Although it's starting.
Gatekeep the fuck out of it. Beat them with sticks if you have to.
Right? It's like it's Warhammer 40K. We're supposed to be the bad guys.
Bro, listen, this is you even got these fuckers infiltrating fucking metal. And metal is supposed to be fuck you. I don't give a fuck what you think about me. And now metal is look at Loudwire. They're all like rainbow lettering.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Warhammer 40K and BattleTech have both been kind of infiltrated. Good news is the community's pushing back pretty hard.
Push back on them hard. Send them into the sea. Drive them. Today is Easter. Watch the Ten Commandments. Fucking do to them what Moses did to the Egyptian army. Spread that fucking sea and then fucking crush them. Get them out of there.
And the worst part is, like, you know exactly what's going to happen as soon as they're done ruining the thing we love. They're going to move on to the next
somewhere else.
They didn't like
fucking
it.
Locusts.
Yeah, they didn't like it. They never liked it.
They only want to use. They only use it as an agenda or a platform to get their message across. And once they've ruined their thing with getting their message across, they move on to something else that's great. And do the same fucking thing.
Once that is no longer able to pay them,
right?
And you can see it just happen from the, oh well, that's no longer profitable. Off to this hobby then. It's like, no, get the fuck out.
Yeah, get the
like
fuck out.
Thing.
Be bullies, right? Be toxic man babies. Take on those insults. Do not, if they call you racist, embrace it. If they call you a sexist misogynist, embrace it. Embrace every ism they call you. They've said it so many times they've made the word meaningless.
Yeah, and it's one of those like, oh cool, if you don't like people like that, then I guess this hobby's not for you. Bye.
Bye. See ya. Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, and Arch said it perfectly a couple of years ago. He's like, oh, well, I like X thing, but that's how you know you're not dealing with a fan.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I would love it if it changed this. It's like, well, then you don't like that thing.
Right.
Like, and I'm sure there is a sci-fi variation of Warhammer or whatever else out there that they did change that thing and you can go play that.
Yeah.
But leave us alone. Like, this shit is ours. Right. But BattleTech is the same way. I was hoping it would stay obscure enough that nobody cared, but the problem is Warhammer 40K. Well, Games Workshop pissed off a lot of people, and they all went to BattleTech. And some of them were the blue-haired weirdos. Just like, oh no, they're here now. But anyway, we'll wrap this one up here. You guys can always find me every Sunday at this time, roughly within an hour or so, for Rock and Roll Religion. This coming Thursday, I am going to be back with another history of rock and roll. This time we are going from 1960 to 1964. And we're going to be covering kind of the British invasion and also the rise of like surf rock in the California scene and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys will join me for that. That's going to be a really fun episode. That'll be this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
Actually, I think me and Scott are pushing it forward. So 7:30 Eastern.
Okay.
It's going to be me, Sporking News Podcast, and 70s Rock Fan.
Sweet.
And Sentinel, if you're around, you're more than welcome to be a part of that conversation because it's a great topic.
Oh, yeah.
And God knows we can never cover it from enough angles.
Yeah, if that's Thursday of next week.
Yeah, this coming Thursday.
This coming Thursday. Okay, I'll probably be busy, but we'll see.
Yeah,
usually on days after I'm not busy, I'm just like sleeping in till like 1 or 2 in the afternoon because I'm just so,
But
anyways, thank you very much. I appreciate that, bud.
Yeah, no worries, man. And other than that, I've got a couple other things I'm trying to do. I may at some point tonight, if I can get it to work, do a stream on Rumble. Do like a radio stream and hang out with you guys a little bit if I can get it to work. I've tried it a couple of times before and it hasn't been successful, but we'll see. So if you don't follow me on Rumble, go follow me over there. It's a really good alternative to YouTube and it seems to be getting better every day.
Yeah.
Every update they push, it gets a little more user-friendly, a little bit more functional. And I really dig that. And they're not censorious dicks like this platform. So, with all that being said, hope you guys will join me for all that, and take care, stay safe. I love you all, and I'll catch you next time.